Today, I'm going on a sartorial journey with Canadian filmmaker David Furnish. David is CEO of Rocket Entertainment Group and chairman of the Elton John AIDS Foundation, which has raised over $125 million to support programs in 55 countries around the globe through prevention and education, elimination of prejudice and discrimination, and providing services to the people living with the disease. David met his husband, Sir Elton John, in 1993, and the couple were married in December 2014, as soon as same-sex marriage became legal in the UK. The couple have 2 boys, Zachary and Elijah. Hello and welcome, David.
Hi, Amanda.
Busy man, straight back from the Oscars.
It's so nice to see you.
Oh, it's lovely to see you too. We were just saying, it's been a while.
It's been a very long time, yeah. I think we all lost a chunk of our life because of COVID.
Yeah. And the weird thing is about social media is even if you don't see people, you sort of feel like you know what they're up to and you're sort of commenting on their posts and they're commenting on yours. And it's actually, I think, a really lovely way.
It's nice. It's a great way to keep in touch.
Yes. But then,
and stay connected. But then nothing substitutes
this is the best.
Seeing people in person.
This is the best. So the Oscars, straight back from there. And you had a legendary dinner and fundraiser.
I mean, we've been doing that fundraiser for 31 years. And it's amazing that each year we're able to grow after all that time. We still get a big turnout. We were sold out this year earlier than we've ever been, weeks in advance. And we took a record $9.1 million, which is fantastic because we have much work to do. We believe we can end AIDS by 2030, and we're on course to do that.
When you say end AIDS in terms of infection?
No new infections. So if everybody knew their status and was on antiretrovirals, they would not pass the virus on to anyone else and they would remain virally suppressed. What we have to do is get people to have access to testing so they understand their HIV status. There's a lot of undetected HIV in the world. There's also people who are vulnerable of contracting HIV, and if we can get them to identify themselves, help them to identify themselves, we can get them on PrEP, which is 1 pill a day, which stops people from contracting HIV. So if we can hit both of those groups and break down the barriers of stigma, then we can believe we can get to a point by 2030 where we'll have no new infections.
What a phenomenal achievement, though, to go from this devastating, horrible, deadly disease to something that...
The greatest disease that affected our planet, over 75 million infections globally. When you were diagnosed with HIV, it was a death sentence. Now it's an outpatient condition. You can go and get a prescription and start your tablets, and with some blood monitoring at the beginning of your journey, you can end up on 1 pill a day and you live a full, healthy life with full life expectancy and no side effects, which is amazing.
And that's in our lifetime.
In our lifetime. I can't think of many other diseases that have been able to...
I want to focus you onto cancer, because you guys have done such a...
Well, it's been a huge team effort, and there were people there before us. But we've been doing what we've been doing for a long time, and we really feel we're well placed to get into the pockets where HIV still exists, because it's amongst more marginalized groups where we're seeing new infections. So we need to reach those groups effectively.
So you're Elton's manager,
yes, I am.
Well as his husband. So this with his farewell tour is, I just can't bear it. I grew up with Yellow Brick Road just blasting. And you probably did too.
I did too. The first album I ever bought bought with my own money. I had those kids' albums. I had the Partridge Family and things like that when my parents were buying me stuff. But when I took my own pocket money and bought an album, it was Caribou. It was Elton's Caribou. And that was the first one, which I think is so funny.
It is bizarre, isn't it? But God, this must be a really busy time. Are you going on the road as a family?
The boys stay in school in the UK. We go and join Daddy on the road whenever we can. And then Elton's going to be doing some multiple nights in European cities. And I'm going to go make sure I'm with him when he's staying in hotels, because he has to stay in a COVID bubble. Because
probably quite a quiet one too.
Yeah,
no?
Yeah. It's lonely living in hotels. It's hard being away from your home. When he's back home, and the family's around, I think it'll all be fine. I just want to make sure he gets all the support that he needs when he's in a hotel on his own.
That's
Hotels can be lonely places.
good husband stuff. I love that. What are you most excited about at the moment, though? Sort of all the activities and projects that are going on.
Yeah, I mean, I'm excited for the tour to come to an end because I think it opens up a new exciting chapter for our family, which is I'm really excited about.
And what does that look like?
Well, it just looks like we have more time to do things together. We have Elton around all the time. We took him to one of Zachary's cross-country races last week. It was the first one he was actually able to go to and he was in town for. And it was just magical, absolutely wonderful. It's just so funny how you can spend your life, on the road, going to all of these big places and touring to all these people. But at the end of the day, the things that bring you more joy than anything is, being there for your kids and your family and watching them achieve great things and reach their own milestones and be there to celebrate with them because they've been very patient. They haven't had, a full-time daddy where Elton's concerned. Certainly he's connected with them all the time. He's on FaceTime. Yeah. He's aware of everything they're doing. He's completely present and participative. But, he hasn't been able to go to a lot of those things. And when he does go, he loves it. And the boys love him being there.
It must be such a joy for you to watch him watching them.
Yeah, because I grew up with two brothers, so I had a really great understanding of, the joy a healthy family dynamic can give you. And Elton was an only child from a broken home. So he never got to experience that and that sense of community. Because everybody that our boys go to school with, the parents, the community, everyone is wonderful. They're really supportive. They're very welcoming. They treat us like any other family. And it's really fun.
Great spot of normality. So today we're going on a style journey together. We both love fashion and style.
Here we go.
So how did you decide what to wear here today?
I just went upstairs. Well, first of all, I looked outside today and thought, what kind of a day is it? And the sun was shining when I left the house, and it felt like a spring day. And so I thought I would put on a spring color. And I went to a rack of suits and pulled this one off. And yeah, here it is. I don't do any advanced planning. I always...
You're not weak on a wall type?
No. I really kind of leave it to the last minute, and I go on gut and instinct because I think, it's how you feel that day, how you feel about yourself. I look at my diary, I think, what am I doing? What, do I have to be a little more dressed up today? Is it just a casual jeans day? I tend to kind of do it on the spot.
Tell me about the suit, though, because it's very cool.
Thank you. The suit is by Christian Dior, designed by Kim Jones. And I like I like tailoring a lot. I think there's something very empowering about tailoring. Whenever I put a suit on, I feel like I have another layer, almost a layer of armor in a sense. Yeah. When I go into a social situation or a business situation, I like to feel confident. And I find a nicely tailored jacket or suit really kind of sets you up. You square your shoulders back and you feel ready to face whatever's coming your way.
It's so interesting you say that because I think as a woman, we have so many more choices in a way, from dresses to skirts to, jackets or coats, whatever. And I know that for me, a beautifully tailored jacket always it's an empowering thing to put on. You can put it on with anything.
Yeah, it really is. And I think the important thing that I've learned more than anything, and you would, as a designer, you would appreciate this, is you need a good tailor. Yeah. You need a good alterationist. I get most things off the rack. I have one leg slightly longer than the other.
Everyone does.
The sleeves never line up. And also, properly tailored clothing actually makes you look younger.
Yeah.
I'm 60. And if I wear a suit that's baggy and ill-fitting, I look 65. If I wear a jacket and a suit that's beautifully tailored, I, look after my health. I go to the gym. I can look 55. Yeah. It can literally take years off you. It also feels better. Yeah. It just it sort of supports you and props you up in a way. But the reason I like tailoring like this, there's this wonderful detail. This is from Kim Jones's, they call it their modern tailoring line. And it's kind of a melding between the principles of tailoring, the fabrics of tailoring, but he'll do things like, take a tailored jacket and put it with a cargo trouser with a pocket, or like a track trouser, but made with a suit fabric. So it has the casual elements of streetwear, but it has the formality of tailoring. So you feel dressed up, but comfortable at the same time. And I just like when men's fashion, when you can just kind of take a very classic, straightforward approach and just twist it a bit and have fun with it. So I clocked the jacket you're wearing today, which looks beautiful. And just to have that, that beautiful row of the metal chains coming down the lapel. I love taking, a beautiful classic jacket and just giving it an edge, something
that tiny edge, yes,
and personality, and something that reflects how you're feeling and what you want to say about yourself.
Yeah. Well, thank you for noticing. You grew up in Canada.
Yes.
Were you exposed to fashion at a young age?
No. I was. My father was very well dressed. He, my parents didn't have very much money, but my dad had he had a few very nicely tailored suits, and he always had respect for what he wore. So he would always have his suits made, and he always had a jacket with 2 pairs of trousers because the trousers would wear out more. Yeah. My dad would get in the car to go to work and put his jacket on a coat hanger and hang it in the backseat of the car. He'd get to the office, he'd take his jacket off and hang it behind his office door. And then when he came home, he always hung his clothes up straight away, and he put his trousers in a trouser press. Like, he was very, very elegantly turned out all the time. And he had respect for, it was a lot of money for my dad to get tailored suits. My mom made her own clothes. I wore my brother's hand-me-downs. And so my dad, because he was earning the money for the family at the time, he needed, to look smart for business. But I just remember him really appreciating a tailored suit, the fabric, the craftsmanship, and looking after it well. So I guess that would be my first, I don't know if I'd call that fashion, but certainly an appreciation of clothes. Fashion came later, more through magazines and through cinema, because I was, growing up in a suburb of Canada and had a lot of fire in my belly, and was looking outside at a much more colorful world than the one I was growing up in, and fashion, called out to me.
But do you remember the first time that fashion impacted how you felt?
I had a moment. I had a moment in high school, because Canadian high school, there was sort of a standard uniform, which was, beat up jeans, work boots, a flannel shirt.
Yeah.
And I had, at the time, my hair parted down the center and sort of feathered back, very 1970s stuff, like everyone else. And I had started buying GQ magazine and reading about, fashion and style. And I just one day woke up and decided I don't want to look the same as everyone else anymore. I went downtown in Toronto to the Vidal Sassoon and got my hair completely changed. I had this asymmetric cut that was, the beautiful classic Vidal Sassoon cut, where you shook your head and it all just fell into place and always looked nice. It was impeccable scissor cutting. And then I changed my wardrobe, and I was very inspired by more kind of, there was a big Ralph Lauren moment then. The sort of preppy look was really coming into fashion, and really influencing things. And it was a look that I liked. And initially, I remember my dad saying, "Oh, if I'm going to get you out of scrappy jeans and flannel shirts, I will buy you, some nicer clothes if you're going to wear them." And then he went on to regret saying that, because once I opened Pandora's box, I enjoyed getting dressed up. I enjoyed feeling special, because wearing clothes that you love and that you enjoy make you feel good about yourself. And I didn't want to be the same as everyone else at school. I was, my aspirations then were to be an actor and to work in the arts. And I just started, reading Interview magazine and looking what was happening in New York. And, the 70s in New York was a very, very vibrant time and a very exciting time. And fashion was really starting to emerge in the cultural consciousness. So I just started hoovering it up more than anything. But that was a transformative moment for me. And I remember coming back to school, and my close friends thought, "Wow, really cool." Everyone else thought I was a freak.
Yeah, because the hair must have really led that transformation.
Yeah, massively. I mean, and it was fun. It was really, it opened my mind to, the real joys and possibility of self-expression.
And did that really evolve when you moved to London?
Yeah. Oh my goodness. I mean, I was drawn and attracted to London because it is one of the world's leading fashion capitals in the world. And I'd been following, through the through the 70s and the early 80s, people like Vivienne Westwood. I had been starting to follow Alexander McQueen, who was just breaking out then. And, these are people I read about. I devoured fashion magazines. I read The Face. I read ID. I read Arena. I really soaked it all up and enjoyed it. And coming to London was just, there was just this, a selection and a diversity that, there was nothing like it in Canada.
And a freedom, perhaps.
Complete freedom, an absolute freedom. And a much greater appreciation of creating the whole high street culture that existed in Britain at that time was much closer to following trends in fashion. There was nothing like that in Canada. There was one place called Le Chateau, which the quality wasn't very good. And it wasn't quite up to the edge. But when you came to London and there were places like Topshop, or even, Next in the 80s was breaking out. Next was making things that were on the runway at the same time. And so being able to see, stuff that was on trend on the runways and being able to, buy a version of it that you could afford. London was full of that.
It was a real Pandora's box.
Yeah, it was really fun.
Yeah. Yeah. I read that Elton really noticed your sense of style the time that you met him.
Yeah.
And do you remember what you were wearing?
I do. I was wearing an Armani pair of trousers and this tartan waistcoat with a sort of Henley type shirt underneath it. And I guess all my friends were just in kind of jeans and t-shirts type of thing. I don't remember what they were wearing, but yeah, I wanted to look, special, and I put on a nicely cut pair of trousers and this waistcoat that I had saved up for and bought in the sale. And Elton noticed it, and I've still got it.
I was going to say,
I've kept it, yeah.
I was just about to ask that. Did you keep it?
Yeah, I've kept it.
How
I've kept it. There's things I've kept over the years that I want to pass on to my sons.
Sort of specific moments.
Yeah, key moments, like the suit I wore to our civil partnership. I've kept that. When I've worn special outfits to our Oscar fundraisers, I keep those as well. And my son, actually, I've been sending things to charity shops. I've been selling a few pieces online quietly during lockdown. And my younger son came in and said, "You're going to keep a few things for me, aren't you?" Which I thought was really interesting because he'd never really expressed that much of interest in what I was wearing. It's not like he was suddenly like, "Oh, Papa, I love your clothes. They're cool." There was nothing like that at all. But it first came to the surface when he saw me taking stuff out to go to sale shops. And can you hang on to a few things for me? Which I thought was really sweet.
Are they both interested in?
They're interested in what is considered stylish and relevant in their community.
Yeah.
So they're liking streetwear a lot. They're liking Nike. They're liking Adidas, Off-White, although it's quite expensive for growing boys.
And sneakers?
Sneakers, they're starting to really get into trainers.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's inevitable.
Yeah.
I think with young boys.
Yes, it really is. I mean, you're often featured on best dress lists, and I wondered how that feels because, you're featured and then maybe you're not. And does that put any extra pressure on?
No, it's nice to get, I've enjoyed fashion my whole life. I've tried to support fashion. Elton and I have a long history of having relationships with designers over the years because we love what they do so much and we admire them so much that they become friends. And then you have that thing where you're wearing the clothes that your friends make, and sometimes they might make something for you or they might choose something for you, and you're in turn supporting their business and giving them profile. We've done a lot of that over the years. And when you're in a position, we look at fashion as artistry. It's a highly creative business. And if, I have a little bit of a public profile, Elton has a very big public profile. If you can support great artists and great designers, then it's a joyful thing to do. And it becomes this really fun, almost symbiotic kind of relationship. So Elton's recent relationship with Gucci and Alessandro Michele.
Yeah.
Very clearly Elton clocked when he was looking at Alessandro's shows. First of all, he loved the exuberance and color and everything, which is what he's all about, and the craftsmanship. And then he saw Alessandro was winking and nodding to things that Elton had done in the 70s, the way Elton had thrown things together at that time. And he reached out to him. They became friends. They were introduced by Jared Leto, of all people. And
that's quite a name drop.
Yeah. Well,
it's a good one.
I thought I'd throw one.
I love that.
Yeah. Jared, it was at the Vanity Fair party, and we'd
another
Jared.
one. Yeah,
we'd known Jared from an event we'd had during the Cannes Film Festival for our film company. But Elton immediately took to Alessandro, and then Alessandro actually did a collection that was directly based on some of his crazy stage looks from the 70s. And then went on to do all the wardrobe for his farewell tour.
What a beautiful symbiosis.
Yeah.
Where is Elton at now in terms of Gucci's now moved Alessandro on, very sadly?
Yeah, he's very sad. It's his friend.
Yeah.
We're loyal to the house because they've been very, very, very good to us. But we haven't met the new designer yet. We're excited to see what's happening and what's coming. Exciting to see where Alessandro goes next, because you and I both know fashion can be a real game of musical chairs.
Yep.
And someone that talented and that creative, he transformed a brand into a global powerhouse and had a huge impact on fashion. I am excited to see what he does and where he goes next. I think it's going to be exciting.
You're obviously in touch, and
yeah,
I feel there's a secret there that maybe you're...
At the moment I know nothing. And from what I understand, and these things are always complicated legally, I think there's a period of time where he can't work for someone else, and then he'll be free to do his own thing. So I don't really know what he's up to at the moment.
And honestly, after the pressure cooker that he has lived in for the last how many years?
I think it's 8 or 9 years.
Yes, exactly. His brain, his body, his mind probably needs a moment of fresh air break.
Yeah, I don't know how a lot of those designers are able to withstand the demands of constantly having to be increasingly creative and on a timetable, because there's so many, as you well know, there's pre-collections, there's cruise collections, there's runway collections, there's diffusion lines, there are men's, there's women's, there's children's, there's home. Some of these companies become so big, and you have to have the consistent creative DNA across everything that you do. That's what makes a brand a brand. And that constant appetite and need to constantly produce and create and change. Fashion can be quite fickle and quite judgmental. And if you don't move the brand on, and if you don't give people something new all the time, they move on to something else.
It is relentless, she says, with feeling. But there's part of me that thinks there's something fundamentally broken about the fashion system. There's more in a world where there's too much stuff anyhow.
Yeah.
And it's just, where do we draw the line and say, let's slow down a bit? Do we really need 6 collections a year?
Yeah. I'm fascinated to see someone who I know not terribly well, but I've met a few times, I really admire, is Phoebe Philo. And Phoebe, left Celine because she wanted to spend time with her family.
Yep.
And I think she was burnt out from being on that treadmill we talk about. And she's now coming back to fashion with her own label, and she's going direct to consumer.
Which I
think is really interesting. And that's someone, I think, who's looking at the pre-existing model and saying, look, I don't want to be chained to that. I'd rather do something in my own way. So, I wish her all the best. I think that's very exciting.
Me too. And I'm fascinated to see what she does in terms of the cycle, because, those beautiful sweaters that she designed, 10 years ago, they're still sensational.
Yeah.
And I would love to feel that those won't go on sale, that they'll be part of a sort of almost like a permanent collection.
Yeah. I hang on to the things that are really special. I try to hang on to them. I don't like the way fashion sometimes leaves things behind. I think a beautifully made garment is a beautifully made garment. And I think it should be, treasured, appreciated, stored properly, and worn again and again and again.
Bravo to that. I mean, it's a well-known fact that you and Elton love to shop.
Yeah.
And I love the fact, what you've just said about supporting your friends who are designers, and that endorsement is hugely valuable. I'll never forget you saying really sweetly, God, not long after we met, I wish you did menswear because we'd love to support. And that really
your women's wear is beautiful.
The world
always
to
has
me. But do you egg each other on the shopping?
Elton doesn't need any egging on, for me. If anything, I try to, rein him in a little bit. No, shopping is how you reward yourself for hard work. We both work very hard. And I think it's important, you acknowledge your achievements by making you feel, going to the shops, and I think it makes you feel good about yourself. And I think there's something so wonderful about going to the shop. I think the whole experience of understanding, what a designer is trying to create in an environment that they've also been a part of creating, and seeing the whole breadth of what they create. I do buy things online from time to time, but I just think buying clothes is so personal. And I think going into a shop and seeing things, touching them, trying them on, making sure they fit properly, understanding, what the designer is trying to do and say, I think is really, really important. And it's hard to get that from a computer screen. Yes. And also, I would imagine, quite hard, being the well-known faces that you are, to shop privately. I would hope you get... It's hard for Elton. It's fine for me. I'm actually, I feel like my profile in a way is kind of going down, which I'm very happy with, because the period of time in London in the 90s, we were all going out. It was all wonderful and fun. And London, there was lots of exciting things happening. But now that I'm a father, being able to take my kids out and not have to deal with any intrusion or interruption is important, particularly when their daddy is so famous. Yeah. I mean, Elton is... I just got a research study from the record company that said awareness of Elton John in Britain is 97.5%. Oh my God. Well, which is pretty high. And that means, you're right. He can't just go out anywhere easily. But he also doesn't like, a lot of these shops now have the multiple floors, and then they have the VIP suite at the top of the boutique. And they think that Elton wants to go sit in the VIP suite, and they want to bring him things. He wants to be in the shop. He wants to walk the rails. He wants to see what's on offer. He doesn't want someone, pre-selecting for him or judging and thinking, oh, we found this and we think you might like it. He's actually really enjoys the whole immersive experience of going into a shop. That's lovely. It's like walking into a sweet shop. Yeah, I bet. I mean, you famously held an auction in aid of the AIDS Foundation, the Elton John AIDS Foundation, which included some of yours and Elton's pieces. How did you decide what was going in and what wasn't? Well, we used to have annual sales. Yes, exactly. They were called Out of the Closet. Yes. We did one in Atlanta. We did one in New York. We did a few in London. It's very cathartic to have a good clear out. It is, isn't it? And when you think about what that money can do to help other people, and when you think about the fans that really appreciate and enjoy having a piece of Elton's history, it's really easy. It's really fun. I mean, again, I try to hang on to the few pieces that have that represent significant moments in our lives. Obviously, with Elton, we have an archive of key stage costumes and key wardrobe moments from his life, because that's history, that's cultural history, and those things need to be preserved. But there's nothing more satisfying than having a good clear out. Put aside the few things you want to keep, and then just get everything else out and let other people enjoy it. Yeah, and create room for the next one. That is how it works, yes. You created this wonderful white tie and tiara fundraiser at your home in Windsor. What inspired that? I mean, obviously it was a fundraiser, but what inspired the name? I came up with the name. I mean, it was the 90s. It was there was a real sense of growth and opportunity and possibility in Britain at that time. London was becoming an increasingly vibrant place, attracting a lot of international attention. And we thought to open the doors to our home to have a fundraiser would be a very special thing. We'd never done that before. And to stage it in the gardens and to make it really elegant. Well, the ultimate high level of dress codes in Britain for a formal affair is white tie. And then it was also a bit of a nudge to the documentary that I directed about Elton in 1995, which was called Tantrums and Tiaras, because Elton comically had two, they were like dime store tiaras that he was touring with them in his wardrobe. He never wore them. He just had them along because he thought they were funny. But it sort of married a little bit of what was part of our family culture and just wanting to have a really elegant event. And we were also, at that time, our ticket price was £750, which was the highest ticket price that anybody had ever charged for a charity event in London. So we wanted people to feel they were going to something super special, and then they would feel comfortable paying £750. And then it was so well received, the price went up to £1,000. And I'm proud of what we did with that event because I think it really changed the culture of fundraising in Britain. We were the first people to put events on of that scale at that price point and really raise significant amounts of money. I mean, in our biggest year, which was 2008, just before the financial crash, we raised £10.6 million, which in the UK is an enormous achievement because there aren't the same tax incentives to give to charity that there are in America. And it ran its course. We did, I think, 17 of them all together. And then we felt that, I think like most things, they can't go on forever. You need to kind of break it apart, look at doing it differently. And we decided to do a smaller scale event where we could focus on the sort of core 100 most generous donors and find a way to make them feel even more special and to give them more information about how their money was making a difference. I'd like to think we might go back to something bigger in the garden when Elton's off the road. Haven't made any decisions yet. The thing I was always proud of with those events was we had very generous sponsorship, and a huge proportion of the sponsorship covered the event costs. So when we had that high ticket price, a very, very big percentage of the ticket price went to the charity, which I think was great. And that was something we always reminded people. And that, really got us well on the way to ending AIDS.
Yeah, which is a phenomenal achievement. Obviously, Elton's final tour.
Yes.
Have you been very involved in his stage looks?
Well, I was creative director for the tour. So we sat down together and I came up with the concept of Farewell Yellow Brick Road based on one of his most iconic albums, which is Goodbye Yellow Brick Road. And then led a team of people to bring the whole experience to life in terms of the stage design, the content of the films on stage, and then what Elton would be wearing and what the band would be wearing. And Elton, of course, he does the set list first. He can put a set list together better than anyone. He knows exactly how to take his audience on the journey he wants to take them on. Then it was, how do we create the content that celebrates that and elevates and highlights the special moments you need in the show? And then, of course, he reached out to Alessandro, just picked up the phone. He called him and said, I want you to do clothes for my farewell tour. And we broke it into 2 chapters. So the first half is a bit more a nod to Elton's classical roots. And still rock and roll, but more kind of, his foundations were at the Royal Academy of Music as a student musician. So, Alessandro designed beautiful tailcoats. And different tailcoats with lots of embellishment. And then Elton went and got some Gucci accessories and embellished everything even more. He put necklaces under the jackets and put pins on some of the jackets. And then the back half of the show, where we really ramp up the rock and roll quotient, which opens with Funeral for a Friend and Love Lives Bleeding, in this very sort of gothic sequence that we created. We wanted it to be more relaxed for Elton, and he says it's really important. He doesn't feel like he's ready to be Elton John until he puts a stage costume on, and he feels the same thing that you and I were talking about with tailoring earlier. He said he could never just go on and do a show in a tracksuit or in a t-shirt and jeans. It is a big part of the psychological process of preparing himself to go on stage. Complete transformation. And so the back half is tailored jackets. brightly colored fabrics and stuff. The thing that I'm grateful for is we partnered with Joe Hambro, who's been working with Elton for a while. And Joe, during the Yohji Yamamoto days, because they did the clothes for Elton's Vegas Red Piano show, Joe looked at the way Elton sits behind the piano and the way that he moves, and so came up with a way of constructing the jackets so that they always sat squarely on his shoulders, that they didn't jump around as he played the piano so aggressively. And then we put athletic mesh under his arms, also so the jacket would settle better and so that he could breathe more. So all of that sort of initial construction breakthroughs that we made for the Red Piano show, we carried forward, and Gucci picked all of it up. And they just sit beautifully on him, and he's comfortable and he's cool and he doesn't have to think about what he wears. I remember Joe at the time saying, I want him to fly. I want him to feel free. And I think the team at Gucci did a brilliant job.
What a fantastic creative process to be part of.
Yeah, It's really fun. And those fitting sessions were, Elton was just shrieking with joy.
Let's talk about Elton's 50th birthday party dress code, because that was a moment.
Yes, that was a huge moment for Elton.
Literally.
Yeah, I know, and a big moment for me, because it was all very new to me then. I'd only been with Elton a couple of years at that point, and we hadn't done many things in public. And Elton, we worked with someone who we admired massively, and that's Sandy Powell, who does all of the clothes for Scorsese films. We had seen the work she had done for the Sally Potter film Orlando, and all the amazing outfits she'd made for Tilda Swinton and all the cast. And we were great fans of Sandy, and we know her now, and she's become a friend. And Elton said, this is my 50th. I want a huge Louis XIV inspired outfit. I want a giant train, and I want a huge oversized wig with a galleon in it. And it was a boat on top of a wig, and the cannons literally fired smoke. He had a little thing in his pocket. It was talc that came out of the cannons. And it was so big and so large that we had to go in a panel truck to get to the party. We would never have sat him in the backseat of any car. Well, and so we put
impossible, sure.
And the team, jokingly, to get in the spirit, put 2 thrones in the back of a truck. And there was a little mantelpiece. And Elton and I both sat in that. I wore a smaller wig, but it was lilac with a tiara built into it, or a little crown. And they were all beautiful reflective hubs. They were beautifully made. In fact, I think Elton's 50th birthday costumes at the V&A right now. They're doing an exhibition on exuberant male style. And it's in there. But the problem was that no one had done a recce of how to get to the Hammersmith Palais at the time. And we got stuck in terrible traffic. And we were sitting in the back of this van, couldn't see where we were going. And I was holding Elton's wig to the side of his head because it was so heavy. It kept tilting forward and tilting back. And every time the car would move, his wig would be like moving around. And he, we knew there was this huge wall of photographers when we arrived. And he was really uncomfortable. And he said at one point, look, let's turn around and go back. And I'm like, no, we have to keep going. We have to keep going. And so we arrived, and then there were 2 assistants who were unfurling the train on the jacket. I guess it was almost pre-Met Ball before what Met Ball has become in a funny way, because it's very theatrical, very stagey, very costumey, and a whole lot of fun. And everything I love about Elton with fashion, he takes his fashion very seriously, but he doesn't take himself seriously. Yeah. And that was him having, a laugh, and the tongue was firmly planted in the cheek. Thankfully, we had a backup wig inside the venue. So as soon as he did one lap of the room,
fired the cannon.
And fired the cannons. We got rid of the train, and we unhooked the train, and we put him in a much more comfortable, manageable wig, and he was able to enjoy the party.
I mean, it's quite challenging for you to create your own sense of style and identity when you're with a character that has a huge and very well-known 97.5% of the country.
Yes, know who he is.
And I salute the way that you have really firmly embraced your own style, and instead of trying to be a mini me.
Yeah, I mean, I've always had very direct views and distinct views on what I want to wear and how I want to dress. I've had a lot of fun over the years, trying different things. My first kind of major fashion moment, it was like the scene from Pretty Woman, and Elton and I had been together for about, I guess, maybe 3 months at this time. And it was our first weekend away, and we went to Paris, and he took me into the Versace shop on Faubourg Saint-Honoré, and I kind of got pushed into this fitting room, and then there were 5 or 6 assistants all kind of swirling around me, and colorful silk shirts and leather trousers and overcoats with big gold buttons on them, which wasn't my style. And I remember feeling a little bit nauseous. It was kind of overwhelming. And I just said, can I just have a minute to just catch my breath? And Elton said, I really want to get you these things, and I love your style, but you might enjoy stepping a little bit more in an exuberant direction. And I tried them. And in some instances, there were moments and events or occasions where I might have felt comfortable wearing that kind of stuff, but in the end, it wasn't full on high octane. Versace was not my style. I love Versace a lot, and they make some beautiful pieces. We just went to Donatella's show in Los Angeles. So every outfit was so beautiful. It was, I think, one of the best collections she's ever done. It was a beautiful show. But I kept those pieces. I wore those pieces. I found ways of adapting them down in a way. So if there was a coat with big buttons, I would wear it with, a more sober suit underneath it, not a big silk shirt, not the big giant gold studded Versace belt. I just broke it down into, pieces that I could add into my own wardrobe. And they were beautiful clothes. I mean, the quality at that stage was just, there was nothing like it. I'd never worn clothes that made of such exquisite fabrics and such beautiful workmanship. And it made Elton happy for me to kind of, take a nod a little bit in his direction. But then, I think what you choose to wear is what you choose to say about yourself to the world. And there's nothing more empowering and freeing than being true to yourself.
So when do you think you really found your style mojo?
I used to, follow fashion quite closely. I remember Joseph was down in the south of France, bless Joseph, who hugely transformed the fashion landscape in London. He had designer jumpers, Japanese jumpers in his hair salon, I think on the King's Road was sort of how the whole Joseph retail phenomenon began. And I remember he was down and I was talking and I said, have you seen any great new menswear designers? And he said, well, there's a really talented guy at Saint Laurent, and his name is Hedi Slimane. And I was like, Saint Laurent, really? Because Saint Laurent, at that point, their menswear was, it was what I called duty-free shop clothing. It was a lot of licensed stuff and it wasn't fashion. And I took a look at what Hedi had done online, and they were, in the spirit of 70s Saint Laurent, but beautiful classic tailoring and amazing quality. And just, Hedi always had an amazing way to embellish a garment without making it gaudy. To give it an edge, to give it a modernity, and a level of kind of a little bit of rock and roll without, crossing the line and being, he didn't go into Cavalli territory, for example. And so, okay, log that in my mind. Then when we were in New York, next I went to Charivari, another great American retail fashion store that's no longer with us, unfortunately. And they had they had all of Hedi's first collection. It was like a capsule, small collection. And I bought every piece. They were all so beautiful. And that kind of started the journey. Then Saint Laurent was sold, and Hedi went on to set up Dior Homme. There was no Dior men's fashion label. And we became friends. And I sat in the front row of the show. I wrote a big article about him in British GQ, really got behind him, really supported him. And that sort of combination of, a beautiful tailored jacket, skinnier tailoring, higher armholes, beautiful cut, beautiful construction, and then, putting it with a really great pair of jeans, a nice boot, a nice trainer, a nice sneaker, just kind of turned into a uniform. And that was where I really felt I found something that, and it just felt like something I wanted to wear. It felt like an expression of who I wanted to be.
Would you say you have a style icon?
Someone who I look back, who I just think was always amazingly elegant, was Cary Grant. I just think he always looked so beautifully turned out in every film he was in every iconic Hollywood photograph. He just wore beautiful clothes, and he wore them effortlessly. Yeah. And they never overpowered him. They enhanced him, and it seemed natural. And I think when someone finally finds their style, everything just lines up beautifully and feels. It doesn't feel like there's any effort being exerted. It looks effortless.
Which actually brings me on to my next question of how would you describe your style, or how would you like your style described in 3 words?
Modern, but not trendy. Rooted in tailoring and the classicism of tailoring, but pushing the boundaries of tailoring in an elegant way. That would sort of... That's not exactly a single soundbite, but
not 3 words. But I will.
Yeah, but those are sort of the qualities and characteristics if I was to try and summarize it.
Yeah. Do you have one item of clothing that means the most to you?
Well, the waistcoat I wore when I met Elton, I still have. That means a lot to me. Hetty made me a beautiful morning suit. He sent his best tailor over from Paris when Elton and I had our civil partnership in Windsor, and that I look at it in photographs and it looks so modern, but it looks comfortable, and it was really, really tightly cut under the armhole. I never for a second on that day ever felt constricted, constrained. I actually put it on and forgot about it. And then you look at it in photos and you go, wow, you were really, socked in. I've kept that. That's very, very special to me. And that was a big moment in Elton's and my life. And I think a big moment for the world, because that was the first kind of major Western country that was, starting on the journey of same-sex, marriage and pushing closer and closer towards equality. And both Elton and I felt it was really important to shine a light on that. And we didn't know what to expect. And when all the world's media turned up on the day, and they really turned up, that we had television trucks up and down the street, parked off to the side of the road. There were thousands of people on the streets in Windsor. It wasn't, we didn't see that coming. And it was all positive and all joyful. And people were so genuinely happy and supportive. And to see, I never thought something like that would be possible in my lifetime, because I tried to come out to my mom when I was 21. And I ended up going back into the closet for another decade because AIDS was happening. And at the time, my mom said to me, I'll never reject you. I love you. But I fear for you. I fear you'll be discriminated against in your job. You won't find lasting love in a relationship. You won't have children. All the things that have brought me joy and brought your father and me stability and happiness won't be available to you. They'll be taken away from you. And I don't want anybody taking anything away from my son. She wasn't shutting me down.
No,
she was just being honest and being, And I never at that time could ever have imagined to get to the places that we've got to. We still have lots more work to do. I just woke up this morning to an article about horrific legislation that's just been passed in Uganda, where you can be jailed for life for having gay sex and put in jail for 7 years for attempting to have gay sex. And that just is horrendous and shocking and shouldn't be happening.
Out of interest, did your sartorial style change when you came out?
Yes, because I didn't come out till I was with Elton. I didn't come out to my family. So and Elton laughs about that. He said, when you came out, you really came out. And so I had the simultaneous, I always loved beautiful clothes. I wore a lot of Armani before I met Elton. You talk about moments when you discovered fashion. I think a big moment for me was when I saw American Gigolo and Richard Gere in that film with all of those beautiful Armani clothes. Yeah. I remember that sequence in the film where he's getting dressed and he's throwing the shirts on the bed and then he's throwing the ties on top of them and then he's laying the jackets alongside. That was so modern and so beautiful, and nobody was doing anything like that at the time. I digress. So I was wearing a lot of Armani then, but certainly when I met Elton and then I was more open about my sexuality, I felt more confident. I felt more comfortable in my skin, and then the clothes that you wear start to reflect that. I bought a few things that I sort of think, what was I thinking? I think we've all done that. But
part of our sartorial journey, isn't it?
But they've gone on to new homes and better places, and you learn every day.
But on that note, do you feel you have ever? Is there anything in your sort of photographic archive that you look back on and you think, what was I thinking?
Well, there's one photo that exists of Elton and me, and it constantly is trotted out whenever they want to write an unflattering article about us. And we had a birthday party for Elton at the Ritz Hotel, and the theme for the party was rock meets Baroque, and it was get dressed up.
Yeah.
In that sort of style. So we're coming out of the Ritz Hotel, and Elton and I are both head to toe in Versace, and I'm wearing a black leather jacket that has gold leather Baroque details on it, and then white trousers with gold Baroque detailing all over it, gold boots. At that moment, I was delving into new hair color moments, so I had gone a little blonde. And Elton was wearing a head-to-toe silk shirt, Versace suit. And then Patrick Cox, as a birthday present, had given us one of the Louis Vuitton Steven Sprouse bags that Marc Jacobs had done. Yeah. They were like, they'd just come out. Like everybody was dying to get their hands on one. And Patrick was so excited he managed to get one for Elton for his birthday. So we're standing side by side. Elton's holding the Steven Sprouse Louis Vuitton bag. It just looks like an explosion of I don't know what. But every time that picture comes out, it's like, oh, why do they have to keep using that photo? And everybody thinks we dressed like that every day, when in fact it was a fancy dress party. It was and I would normally take any of those pieces. I would take a jacket like that, and I think when you have what I call statement pieces, I think the best thing to do is to make one statement with one piece, and then everything else you put with it should be neutral or subdued. In this case, it was the mashup of about 20 statement pieces. And then they occasionally run that photo and they're like, these guys have access to all this fashion, and why did they go out the door of their houses dressed like that? And don't they have someone them help? And it's like, it was a fancy dress party. Anyway.
Now, let's just talk about travel for a moment, because you clearly love your fashion, probably have quite a lot of clothes. Are you a good packer? Are you a bad packer? Do you take a lot of cases?
I err on the side of taking more rather than less. I like to have a selection when I go. I also find inevitably, and this is more for longer, if Elton's working on an album and I go to LA for 2 weeks, or I'm working on a Broadway show in New York and I'm going to be there for 2 or 3 weeks, inevitably you find yourself invited to something, or you have to go to something that you weren't planning on going. And I can't think of anything worse than having something at home in your wardrobe and thinking, God, I wish I'd packed that. And then you go out to buy something, or you go out wearing something that something at home would be better suited to that occasion. So I tend to err more on the side of packing more rather than less. I pack in looks. So I take...
That's super organized.
Yeah, so I take, I take a jacket and I say, this is the shirt I can put with it. This is a trouser I can put with it. Here's a belt. Here's a pair of shoes. Yeah. And then I pack like a complete look. And then I try to also pack on a similar color palette, or at least a color palette that complements each other. And men's fashion isn't and my version of men's fashion is as exuberant and colorful as fashion can be. So I tend to have, blue and charcoal gray and black, and then maybe a bit of brown. And, you can mix all of those things together and they all kind of line up. So if you do a couple of looks that have, based around those colors, then you can, as soon as you get there, you can start mixing things up and swapping them around.
Now, I have to ask you, because I always ask my guests, what is your approach to sustainable fashion?
Well, I try to, keep things, recycle them, use them. The things I have, I find I'm buying fewer and fewer things, and I'm wearing the things I love much more often and hanging on to them longer. I always, send clothes to charity shops. I do.
Where?
Quietly. I do quietly send off. I do quietly sell a few things online. I don't use my own name. I just do that very quietly, just to sort of move things along so that other people can enjoy them, and they should have as long as an extended a life as possible. There's a couple of interesting. There's an online company called Asket, Asket, and they make amazing basics, and everything is sustainably sourced. And you go to their website, and it tells you how many hours of labor, how much natural resources were used. Everything is shipped with recyclable packaging. The whole ethos of the company. They make a great, beautifully cut classic denim jean, nice button-down shirts, nice cottons, great t-shirts, all those kinds of things. If there's a company out there that's doing it well and doing it sustainably, then I've tried to find those companies. The thing I'm most happy about, I think everybody can relate to the quest for the perfect pair of jeans, right?
Oh, yes.
Everybody spends their whole life looking for the perfect pair of jeans. And I found a company that's in a small town in Wales called Hiut, Hiut.
Yep.
And that was an industrial town that lost its industry. And the entire town has been economically rejuvenated by this handmade denim company. Yeah.
It's a beautiful story, isn't it?
It's a great story. And they get the best quality salvage from Japan in limited runs. And they do, jeans runs of, 50 to 100 blocks of jeans in different sizes. They are my favorite jeans. They're beautifully made. They're all hand finished. They're a sensible price for what they are. It's the best salvage in the world, and it is supporting an entire community of people.
So let's spin on to quickfire questions. Mm-hmm. What fashion advice would you give your 20-year-old self?
Probably to be more adventurous, and to buy things. Quality. I think if you buy things that are beautifully made, you can wear them forever and ever.
Fashion trend you'd most like to see a comeback?
It never really goes away, but I'd like to see a resurgence, a move towards tailoring, men's tailoring and women's tailoring coming back in. I love how streetwear has completely kind of thrown everything up in the air, and I like the melding of streetwear with tailoring. I just don't ever want to see tailoring go away.
I'm with you. Fashion or beauty trend that you would consign to Room 101?
Oh, people are playing with their faces too much. It's becoming, I'm all for coming up with the best version of yourself, but I'm seeing people inspired by stuff they see online on social media, and this is one of the downsides of social media, because what people are curating and what they're creating and how they're presenting themselves is not real. And I have met a lot of people, and there's a record numbers of depression now amongst young people and young girls in particular. And I think it's putting too much emphasis on perfection, and ironing out every ounce of individuality that exists in people's face and makes them, naturally beautiful. And instead, there's a lot of people going around they don't even look like themselves anymore. And I think it's really sad.
Your views on tattoos?
I think they're an expression of yourself and how you feel about yourself. I have 5 tattoos. I think my only view about tattoos is I think they should always be able to be covered by clothing.
Minimalism or maximalism?
Well, I live with a maximalist. But I'm probably max. Resistance was futile. I'm a maximalist.
Crocs, cute or puke?
Oh, I don't Crocs. No, do your feet breathe? I mean,
Through
I know
all
they
of
have
those
holes in
holes.
them, but it's still like that kind of injection molded rubber sitting against your foot.
Sports luxe or rock and roll?
I have to say rock and roll
Savile
for obvious reasons.
Savile Row or jeans?
Gianni Versace had a collection and called it Savile Rock.
Oh,
So that would be, to me, that would be like and that was what I liked about what Hedy was doing at his time at Dior. It was, Hedy cared passionately about tailoring and cut and line, but he also made the best jeans and best like sporty accessories that went with it. So it was very rock and roll with tailoring. So yeah.
Trend or style?
Style.
Color or monochrome?
Color. Appropriate color.
Pattern or plain?
I love pattern, but for me personally, I'm better in plain. That's more my style.
Hoarder or editor?
Editor.
Boxers or briefs?
Briefs.
Budgie smugglers or board shorts?
At my age, it has to be board shorts.
You hesitated.
No, because I if you're lying in the sun and you want a nice tan and everything, then you want to wear briefs. And I used to get teased for wearing Speedos when I was swimming competitively when I was in my teens in Canada.
Hang on, swimming competitively?
Yeah, I mean, it was part of a local swim team and society and stuff. And you want to go faster in the water, so you need to wear Speedos. And
cool.
I got teased mercilessly by all the guys who still wanted to wear they weren't wearing board shorts, but they'd just be wearing the kind of elastic waist, slightly baggier shorts. But I won more races.
Beanie or baseball cap?
Baseball cap.
And finally, David, at the end of the day, one last question. What do you or don't you wear in bed?
I wear nothing in bed. Or Marilyn Monroe had the best answer for that. They said, "What do you wear in bed?" And she said, "Chanel No. 5."
And so what fragrance do you wear in bed?
I wear Eccentric Molecule. 01.
Snap.
Yeah. And that's the only fragrance I wear. And a friend of mine used to make it in his kitchen in London. And it's a big, big global brand now. And every person that wears it, it smells different on. And I've never worn something where I have had more people stop me and go, "Can I just ask what you're wearing?" They like on taxis, people in restaurants, walking into a concert venue, someone behind me, they'll actually run up and say, "I just got," and I'm like, "Oh, I'm not wearing too much, Emma." And they go, "No, it just smells so nice." So yeah.
It is genius, I have to say. David, I could talk to you about all things fashion and style and life forever and ever. I've loved this morning. Thank you so
Thank you for having me.
much.
It's so nice to see you.
It's great.
You're
to
looking
see you.
gorgeous as always.
Well, you are looking as fit as a flea, honestly, and we are same vintage. So thank you.
Thank you very much.